Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of New York City Planning Commission to order. Can we have a roll call?
Johnson.
Here.
Velez.
Here.
Burgos.
Here.
Davis is excused. Wolf is excused. Gaines.
Here.
Moore is excused.
First item are the minutes from the previous meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review them? Any changes? Is there a motion to accept?
Make a motion to accept.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Johnson.
Aye.
Velez.
Aye.
Burgos.
Aye.
Gaines.
Aye.
Did everyone have an opportunity to look at their zoning hearing board email? Any notes, any comments? Any unfinished business? Under new business, land development subdivision plan. First, we'll hear from staff and we'll ask the applicant to step forward.
Okay, so this has been in front of you before for, I guess, for zoning or whatever, for zoning. So it's at 15 East Philadelphia Street for, it is a subdivision to combine, to separate the one lot from the other. We were not, we did not agree with the vacation of the Gas Avenue behind that, but it has since been changed, and those are the revised plans that you have.
Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Could you step forward and provide your name, please?
Hi, my name's Eric Peel with Peel and Company.
And can you explain the changes that we're looking at here?
The plan is a two-page plan. There's an existing conditions plan and then a proposed plan to subdivide the one lot known as 15 East Philadelphia Street into Lot 1 and Lot 2. Originally, during the pre-development meeting, the city expressed an interest in vacating the alley that runs perpendicular into Gas Avenue at the north of the property. Later on, as we discussed the project more, the city decided that that wasn't the best approach. Instead, they rather police the alley, because right now there's a lot of people parking off street in what is the alley, so it's actually congesting that parking lot behind the grotto, which is 15 East Philadelphia Street. So we revised the boundary, moved it back west or back east where it was. So that alley remains that runs perpendicular into Gas Avenue. The end of the alley is still hatched out on your plan. That we're filing a quiet title action, is it actually runs into the footprint of the building where it overhangs the alley, and it just made more sense to create Lot 1 and Lot 2 both as Lot 1 would essentially be like a square lot instead of having that cutout in it. That really didn't make any sense.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Anyone from the public who would like to address this case? Hearing none, do we have a motion on the request for land development waiver?
I make a motion to approve a request for a land development waiver at the property located at 15 East Philadelphia Street in the CBD zoning district.
I second.
Any further discussion? A roll call, please.
Johnson.
Aye.
Velez.
Aye.
Burgos.
Aye.
Gaines.
Aye.
Is there a motion for to waive preliminary subdivision?
I make a motion to recommend approval of a waiver for a preliminary subdivision plan at 15 East Philadelphia Street.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson.
Aye.
Velez.
Aye.
Burgos.
Aye.
Gaines.
Aye.
Motion for lot consolidation.
I make a motion to recommend approval of a lot consolidation for 15 East Philadelphia Street in the CBD zoning district.
Second.
Hold on a second. I'm sorry, I didn't copy it to the minutes. All right, go ahead.
Roll call, please.
Johnson.
Aye.
Velez. Virgo. Gaines.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
$127 North Broad Street.
Okay, and I just want to also just make a general announcement to any of the land development subdivision attendees here this evening. I think I've told everyone, but I just want to let everybody know that they will not go in front of city council until July 15th because they are on summer break until July 15th. Just wanted to reiterate that with everyone.
Staff.
I'm sorry, what did you go on?
127 North Broad Street.
So staff did a staff review on this. The staff as a whole recommend to deny the land development waiver request due to lack of bonding, the concern of not having a clear standalone plan for the scope and limits of phase 1 improvements. And we agree with reasons listed below. We will not evaluate phase 1. We will evaluate phase 1 in the event phase 2 does not happen for a long time or does not happen at all. So they have, what you have there should be their revised that they submitted to me.
So are you recommending approval or denial?
So we recommended denial of the land development waiver.
Could you provide your names for the record, please?
Yes, my name's Neil Metzger with Site Design Concepts. I do project management.
And I'm Matthew Steinkamp, the land owner.
Could you explain what we're looking at here?
Yes, and actually let me open up to the second plan. I think it was SK 3.1. Mr. Steinkamp, who is the owner of the property or the representative of the owner of the property, would like to move forward with the conversion of the existing building that's still standing at that location and turn it into 8 dwelling units. In order to do so and comply with building code, just for that existing building, I believe a stair tower needs to be added in terms of providing egress and things of that nature. So this request was filed, I think, April 30th, and it's just associated with requesting that the city planning commission recommend, hopefully, approval and council ultimately approve the requirement to prepare, submit, and process a formal land development plan for phase 1 only, not for the complete build out. Should Mr. Steinkamp and Weaver Warehouse LLC move forward with developing the rest of the site, which I believe is his intention, but as Ms. Griffin said, phase 1 needs to be evaluated by itself, which we fully intend as part of the building permit submission process to comply with any review comments that would be related to the site plans, because the site plans do get reviewed for handicap access and things of that nature when you actually submit for a building permit application. SK 10 shows, or SK 30 shows the ultimate build out of the site with the big red line that cuts through the site, kind of east to west direction, left, right. That shows the dividing line between what would be phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 2 would be a whole new building that would be connected to the existing building and would contain around 32 dwelling units. And then there would be an expansion of the parking lot. Phase 1 would construct the parking lot above or to the north of that red line, which is, it would provide 14 parking spaces. A lot of that pavement is already placed, as obviously before the fire, it was already under construction, and I believe they had placed the base coat of the asphalt pavement there. So, and there was a previously approved land development plan to convert the entire building to, I believe, 40 dwelling units or 42 dwelling units. So what we would like is some relief granted. They have financing to start the construction, and they would prefer not to delay the project anymore if we could basically just go straight to a building permit application review process. And obviously as part of that, the zoning department, the engineer and fire department, they'd obviously have to review it and agree that everything looks acceptable and meets the city requirements.
But at this point, what the drawing that you see there, where I don't think Neil is saying, these incorporate the changes that were requested in the denial phase. So we got word that they were denying our original submission. So these are the changes that were made in accordance with what they gave us to do. So we changed it, and this is what we were told to do. So this is, from what we understand, is how this is what we were asked to do from the fire department. And
Well, what are the changes?
Do you want me to read what the fire department on the review, on this review, stated that so the building itself and what they intend to do on the inside of the building is identical to what was originally thought out before the fire. And they had got zoning approval for relief of the number of parking spaces per unit. What changed drastically was the parking lot itself, the egress and regress of the parking lot. So the fire department was concerned about getting their big fire trucks in and out of there. Obviously, probably more so than anywhere else, as you could understand, in the event of a fire. So the fire department's concerns were based on the current submitted land development plan and its access to the rear. Phase 2 will require fire department access to the rear and side. Phase 1 must meet these access needs to satisfy Phase 2 needs. International Fire Code Section 503 and Appendix D. Chestnut Street to parking lot access curb cut widths are not indicated. Are they indicated? Can you say where they're indicated on there?
Yes, they are dimensioned on, I believe, both SK 30. They were originally shown, I believe, around 16 feet wide. They have all of the, one of the main changes that was made was, I believe there was an access, it was one way in, one way out, and the one drive was right next to the existing building. So in the event of a fire, that would probably not be able to be used. So taking into consideration the fire department's comments, we have actually made all of the aisleways, all of the access drives, a minimum of 22 feet is dimensioned on the plans, so that now two-way traffic can flow in and out of the site. And the access drive that's furthest to the west, the one nearest this existing building that's right here, that one has been moved, shifted far enough away from the building that it can be used in the event there is a fire, because it's not obviously immediately adjacent to a four-story building. And then on the third plan that you have, which is SK 32, sorry, we routed the city's fire truck that was provided by Ms. Griffin and the fire department. We showed that a routing, that circulation, that the fire truck can now navigate the site. And obviously, like I said, we would work with the fire department and the city staff to address any further comments. In addition to, we have no problem having a recommendation that the waiver be approved under the condition that a construction bond be provided that's determined to be acceptable by the city staff, the city engineer, to bond driveways and public sidewalks and things of that nature. Even though we wouldn't be going through the land development process, we would provide that bond as a condition prior to any building permit being issued.
So, okay, so that was what I was getting to next. If you approve a land development waiver, that alleviates them from the bonds, but if you do it with the condition that they're gonna place that on the construction side of it with a bond of any improvements, trees, sidewalks, curbing, anything of that nature, if they attach it to that, then if Mr. Steinkamp never does phase 2 and phase 1 becomes just a standalone and the other part where they tore down is, I don't know, a parking lot or whatever it becomes, then at least that they've made the improvements that they should make or need to make for the phase 1 of the actual building that still stands for the apartments. Does that make sense? Okay.
Any questions? Have the curb cuts already been done, or you're just waiting for approval?
There were approved curb cuts. The original plan was approved in 2017, and obviously it was under construction in 18 when the fire occurred. There are curb cuts. They're going to be completely redone because they're not 22. The original design had a one-way in, one-way out, and I believe the last sheet that's in your set actually shows the original approved plan. It's
So we'll have to run new curb cuts.
yeah, there'll be new curb cuts, whether they're concrete aprons, asphalt. We'll work with obviously the city engineer, whether they want the actual side where the sidewalks cross to be concrete. But yeah, so we would replace, the original plan had actually one way out at 2 locations and one way in. So they were only 18 feet wide. We're going to go with 2 larger access points, 22 feet wide, so that the fire trucks can get in and out easier in the event they'd ever have to come and do a rescue operation or whatever.
I just didn't remember it on the original application. What was it, 2017? I didn't remember what the width was on the curb cuts.
Yeah, so up on that SK33, yeah, at the top shows what the site layout was, and this was the existing building here, shown in red, that ended up being destroyed, and they were gonna have parking underneath it, yeah, on the level 1.
Widths.
Yeah, yeah.
But in general, it's not drastically different in terms of the parking lot layouts and, how that circulated. But we are going with two-way traffic throughout because people are going to drive the wrong way anyways.
Any other questions? Anyone from the public that would like to address this case? Do we have a motion for the request for land development waiver?
I make a motion to request the LD waiver at 127 North Broad Street in the UN2 zoning district.
Second.
I didn't hear what else you said.
She asked her.
Okay. Can I withdraw my motion?
You can withdraw it, or do you want to?
I'm gonna amend it.
Okay.
Okay. I recommend to approve the request for LD waiver at 127 North Broad Street in the UN zoning district, pending securing the bond for city staff and engineer.
Do you accept the change?
Second.
We have a motion, second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez, Burgos, Gaines.
Aye.
Thank you, John.
Yep, thank you very much.
This the
You know, East Philadelphia and Broad. You got that bigger store, whatever it is. It's the building's behind it, the front.
no, next one, Chestnut.
I think so.
Yeah, I knew what that was.
Next, we have 319 Chestnut Street.
Sorry, turn my microphone on. So 319 Chestnut Street is it's over behind the jail where the old jail was, if nobody is familiar with that area. There are already two sublets or subleases on that property for, there's some fiber, I think they consider it a fiber optic type things with some concrete pads and some things that are on there. This is just for a building that, like a data center, that won't be manned, but will have like one person there that comes in and checks on everything that's there. The only thing that we were concerned about was multiple leaseholds exist on the property without a definition of boundaries or responsibilities. We recommend that a leasehold plan be prepared to define these rights. And and it was the proposed is a fiber optic utility building, is what they call it. Shall meet all applicable environmental performance standards.
Is the applicant present?
And I'm sorry.
Did you have more?
Well, yeah, we're just put on here that staff agrees with you got the staff review, and staff recommends a denial of the waiver request for multiple leasehold agreement until the multiple leasehold agreements exist. To see, what they were doing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. You want to step forward?
Good evening. My name is Lucas Wilson. I'm with Site Design Concepts representing 319 Chestnut LLC. We are seeking conditional approval for land development as part of a plan for a fiber optic utility building, as well as 3 waivers and modifications. I'll start off by turning over to Nat Tafuri with LightPath to describe more about the building for the project.
My name is Nat Tafuri. I'm Vice President of Construction at LightPath. We are a telecommunication company, pretty much from Boston down to Miami, headed west for the most part. We have fiber networks that span majority of many states, including Pennsylvania. We are an enterprise company that provides all types of services to all kinds of companies, from financials to healthcare, to whoever needs telecommunication services. This particular location at 319 Chestnut is called an ILA, inline amplification site, where lots of traffic moves through the fiber network on a minute-by-minute basis for the most part, and the data needs to be reconstructed as it's moving across that network, and that's what this location physically does. So it's pretty much a single-story building. In particular, this one I think is 18 foot in height, around 7,600 square feet, and will house a lot of electronic equipment over time. And so it sits on the fiber network. LightPath purchased United Fiber, UFD, which had the network prior to us. They went bankrupt. We took them over, and we're looking to develop that location into this facility. Any questions?
How much of this plan varies from what we've looked at previously under the other company?
Yeah, so I think under the other company, they were proposing a data center, which is different from a use perspective. Where in a data center, there's lots of servers that store data, where as folks need to access that data, they can access it in that location. This is more of a, what I would call telecommunication site, that again is just amplifying the signal through that fiber network, and just regenerates it and sends it back out over the network. So two different, similar in concept from a telecommunication building. The data centers are very highly concentrated from a power and cooling perspective. This is not. This is very little from a power perspective and cooling perspective. It runs on DC power. The equipment runs at 54 volts. So there's a DC plant inside the building. So very different from what is being housed in there, what used to be proposed to what we're proposing.
Can you explain your request for waivers on street lighting and planning?
Yes, so for street lighting and planning, for the street lighting specifically, across the street from the site location, there are existing street lamps on the utility poles. So we believe that adequately will light 319 Chestnut Street. And then on the street planting side, if you were to turn to sheet C6, we actually are proposing one street tree, but because of the existing sanitary sewer easement and stream easement and other proposed utilities that we have, we're requesting to only provide one in the location that it is.
And why don't you want the tree there? Because of what? Based on the sanitary?
Yes, based on the sanitary sewer easement, that's the green hatch that runs up on plan right of the sheet there. And then there's the existing Poorhouse Run, which is a tributary to Cadorus Creek, also runs along the eastern part of the site. So there's just, there wouldn't be enough room for plantings, and we wouldn't be able to put plantings in those easements. Yeah.
Any other questions? I'm not sure if this is the site I'm thinking of or not, but is there a stormwater runoff channel involved in your property?
I don't believe so.
It may be a little bit north, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't believe there is. I know the grading of the site. Yeah, I'm not sure.
That's
if
okay,
there is.
I just wasn't positive, that's all.
Yeah, I don't believe there is one.
Any other questions? Anyone from the public that would like to address this case?
Blandon Ace, resident. Just curious if the parking lot you plan to install will have its own internal lighting. And I recognize there may be lights on the south side of the street, but given the history of this swale and Poorhouse Run, you know, does this now become an attractive nuisance, and would lighting be better, more lighting better in that neighborhood, particularly from a safety and children perspective? That's all.
Because it's right next to a school.
Yes, so it is, as you said, it is right next to a school. So we actually, as part of the MEP design, that will be part of the building permit, they are proposing wall pack lights on the building, and we believe that the distance from the sidewalk would be sufficient for lighting.
Is there a motion for the, to waive the preliminary plan?
I make a motion to recommend approval to waive the preliminary plan for the property at 319 East Chestnut.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos,
Aye.
Gaines.
Aye.
Do we have a motion on the waiver for landscaping?
I make a motion to recommend approval of the waiving of the planting of street trees according to section 1336.09 for the property at 319 East Chestnut.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos,
Aye.
Gaines.
Aye.
A motion for waiving the installation of street lighting.
I make a motion to recommend approval of the waiving of the installation of street lighting according to section 1336.11 for the property at 319 East Chestnut.
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez, Burgos,
Aye.
Gaines.
Nay.
Motion passes. Do we have a motion for the land development plan?
Nancy, can you go back to the leasehold portion of the conversation and tell me what that was again?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
You talked about multiple leaseholds for the property? The leaseholds.
Oh. So, yeah, staff agrees with the buzz. Staff recommends denial of a waiver request. Multiple leasehold agreements exist, till they exist. I mean, till they have something in writing for that.
So, I mean,
Is that part of land development? Leaseholds?
Well, it is because they were, hold on a second, let me pull this back up. It's more so that because they were talking about should they subdivide, should Light Path subdivide the property or just, have the leaseholds, because it's DQE and Starlight, I believe. And Nate can probably talk better to that. When he purchased it from Data, United Fiber and Data, they already had broken those two off.
So there's a inline amplifier hut that's like, I want to say 10 by 12 in size, a very small hut that's in a chain link fence that's off to the side of the prison that was put in. My guess is it's going to eventually go after the building is up. But there's also a satellite pad back there that Starlink has some satellites shooting up and come down and get onto our fiber network. So there's two customers that tie into our fiber network to access it and leave the state of PA and go elsewhere in the country, right, to go bring signals and data. And so they're there as just tenants to LightPath Fiber that just needed some ground space to tie into our fiber network. So that's what they're doing on that property. So we will own the entire property. We will have an operation and maintenance agreement with the city of York that LightPath will maintain that entire property. It's not left to the tenants.
And just for your FYI, we did have Nate came in from Denver, Colorado, last Tuesday, I believe it was, for our development meeting, and we did go over that with him as far as, making sure that they're going to maintain the whole site, the whole thing as a, including the DQE, including the Starlight,
Yep.
and then, eventually what they may or may not be doing with the old jail.
Yep. So that site is a homeless encampment site right now. I was there with the police department and the fire chief to try to remove those people out of there. We posted no trespassing signs. We'll secure that until we start to redevelop it.
Make a motion to recommend approval of the land development plan for the property at 319 East Chestnut, or 319 Chestnut Street.
A second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson.
Aye.
Velez.
Aye.
Burgos. Gaines.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Next case is 260 North Beaver Street.
Okay, so this is for the Northwest Triangle for the next phase or next phases from statewide, taking 4 parcels and making them into 3. And with doing so, and with the way this was constructed, DCNR, which is for the for the rail trail right there, they had to come up with a revised plan on how they can kind of manipulate that, for lack of a better term, to make sure that when they do the subdivision now, or the reverse subdivision to put it into 3, that will be also taken into account, and make sure that that's the only real thing with that. And I see Bland is here, so he can better explain that, because it's been, I don't know, it's just been making me dizzy as far as what they're planning to do. So Blanda will really explain exactly what.
Good evening.
Hello.
Blandon Ace, Executive Director and Secretary of the Redevelopment Authority of the City of York, who is actually the title holder to this land. This is really basic, as Nancy explained. It is 4 lots currently, and we are doing a reverse subdivision, or a subdivision, to combine those 4 into 3 lots so that they can be further presented with a land development plan. Currently, if you look on, I believe it's sheet 2, you'll see what we call a paper road, or a fictional road that came in as a 90-degree turn that was going to go North Street down to Pershing Street. And that was subdivided back in 2017, 2018. And that road is not going to be constructed like that for multiple reasons, one of which the rail will not allow cars to cross there, and the PUC won't allow that to happen. And so the developer, Statewide Partners, is looking at that larger portion and is now developing several different schematics for what that future Lot 5 will look like. On the last sheet, you'll see Lot 5 is one large 4.22 acre site without that paper road existing through the middle of it. So essentially what we're doing is just cleaning up lot lines at this point. You'll see that Lot 7, proposed Lot 7, is just the little Columbia Gas switch station triangle. That will be transferred back to the City of York for their ownership. And Lot 6 is the next phase of land development, where they're going to start, they'll submit a land development plan to construct some parking there, and a slight modification to the rail trail as it runs through. So you'll see a note on the plan on sheet 2 for a 30-foot wide easement on the rail trail to follow the center line of the trail. So as the trail shifts, the right-of-way or the easement follows that. So it's pretty basic, nothing fancy yet. This is just kind of the first step to clean up all the lot lines to move forward. Happy to answer any questions.
On sheet 2, what are the red hash marks?
I believe, and I'm going off of memory, I think you're seeing the flood zone along the banks of the creek is the 100-year floodplain.
It's a utility easement.
And the hatch,
probably.
the red hatch is a Med Ed easement that was supposed to be extinguished, but yet was not. It's still shown as active, but it's not, there's nothing to connect it to.
So will the easement still exist?
Unclear, we're still researching that. It was removed on the drawings in the 2017, 2018 land development plan, along with some roadways. Actually, Park Avenue, Park Street used to have a right-of-way going through the middle of the site. That was extinguished with some other Med Ed easements, and I believe this one was as well, and the engineer is researching it just to double check. But for now, they're showing it on the plan, but we believe as we move forward, that easement will disappear.
They need to do this so that phases 2, 3, and how many ever else go, go forward, so that they can have this in place to be able to think about what they're going to design, what they're going to put in there, and so that it can be, right there for them when it's all said and done.
Can you explain your, the request for the modification of monuments?
I don't have any of the details on that. I know the site has been surveyed about 400 times. And I know there are iron pins that are set on all of the property corners right now and will continue to be set, just at this phase of the game. And perhaps that's a waiver that would not be requested in the future, but at this point in time, we're just getting through this simple
So
subdivision plan.
they're just asking for metal or magnetic instead of, I guess, more of a concrete monument, that's all.
Yeah, and that's just an old thing in our code that requires concrete, and mag nails are so much easier and better to find too.
Right, I think that's been general language that's been passed through along.
That's a leftover from 1938.
Correct, yes.
Well, put that down on your notes for zoning for modification, when we go back to review it.
For the magnetic.
Yeah, as a replacement for what's in the ordinance now.
Concrete monument, yeah, right.
Yeah. Because after approval of the comprehensive plan, that's our next
Very well aware.
chore.
Yes. It's very high on my list as well.
I'm sorry, I missed that one.
I said, following the approval of comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance is our next chore. So I'd like to put the note in there about revising that section.
Any other questions?
I have none. Anyone else? Anyone from the public that would like to address this case? Do we have a motion for, to waive the preliminary plan?
I make a motion to recommend approval of waiving the preliminary plan for the property located at 260 North Beaver.
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez, Burgos, Gaines.
Aye.
Do we have a motion for the, to waive the monuments? Not waive the monuments, but
Requiring this.
modification.
I'm not really sure how that's supposed to be worded. Make a motion to approve.
To allow the pins instead of a concrete monument.
A waiver for a modification to section 1336.01.c, requiring the setting of concrete monuments.
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez, Burgos, Gaines.
Aye.
Do we have a motion for final land development plan?
I make a motion to recommend approval of the final subdivision plan for the property located at 260 North Beaver, conditioned upon the satisfaction of the items identified in the review letters of the city.
I'm sorry, what did you say, conditioned upon what?
Conditioned upon the satisfaction of the items identified in the review letter from the city of York. Dated 4/30/2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos, Gaines.
Aye.
Motion carries. Zoning case 16-2025-Z-V, 300 East King Street.
Okay, yes, applicant Summer Peninsula, and 135 North George Street, York, PA 17401. Owner is Young Kwan. No fixed address listed. The zoning district is UN2 Urban Residential Neighborhood District. Summary: applicant would like to add another unit to apartment combined with commercial use for a total of 2 units. Variance appeal 1. Applicant seeks a dimensional variance since the proposed density is less than permitted by the zoning ordinance in this district. Staff have reviewed the variance provision of 1311.10.d and finds that the property is not big enough for the proposed 2 units with commercial. Therefore, staff recommends approval of a definition variance to allow commercial with 2 apartments for the property at 300 East King Street. Variance appeal 2. The zoning ordinance requires 4 off-street parking spaces for the proposed 2 units and commercial. The applicant cannot provide any off-street parking. The applicant is seeking a variance to reduce the number of off-street parking spaces. Staff have reviewed the variance provision of 1311.10.d and finds that the property does not have unique physical circumstances or conditions that warrant relief from the requirement of 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit and for the commercial space. Therefore, staff recommends approval of a variance to the minimum number of parking spaces required for multifamily dwelling for the property at 300 East King.
Is the applicant present? Yes. Could you step forward and provide your name, please?
Good evening. My name is Summer Panizzo. I'm an attorney at CGA Law Firm here representing Young and Haija Kwan, the property owners for 300 East King Street.
Could you explain a little more what they're requesting to do?
Yes. First, I do want to note, I believe the citation in the agenda relates to hotels, motels, and convention centers. Cite section 1304.01.4.05.002D. The property in question is not a hotel, motel, or convention center. It does not offer transient housing at a daily rate. We are requesting relief from section 1304.01.1.03.001D. It does still have the parking requirement. I just wanted to make sure it was clear which section we are requesting a variance from.
Yeah, hold on a second, because it was probably cut and pasted improperly.
I'm confused. While she's looking at that, the commercial use, is it going to remain?
Yes, the commercial use is going to remain the same. So the property is a 3-story building. The first floor has always been used as a neighborhood grocery store, Penny's Market. Young and Haija took ownership in 1993. The second floor and the third floor have been used as tenant-occupied units. However, there was a period of time in which the property owners no longer used the third floor as a rental unit. It was during this time that the proper inspections were done on the second floor to have a rental unit inspection. On the third floor, those were never conducted. My client, they had family members living in the third floor unit. And their understanding was, because it is family, it does not fit in within the definition of a tenant-occupied unit. So there wasn't this understanding that an inspection needed on the third floor, but the third floor has always had the requirements of a unit, a tenant-occupied unit of a house, the kitchen, bathroom, living room, bedroom. So upon the inspection of the third floor unit, the zoning officer, Mr. McMillan, did notice that the third floor was occupied by a tenant because starting in 2024, there was a non-family member living in the unit. And Mr. McMillan correctly noted there should be an inspection on the third floor unit. And that is why we are here today for the variance for the apartment with commercial use requiring off-street parking. This application comes from a zoning determination. We are appealing the determination, but also in the same application filing for a variance of the use of in the requirement of parking.
So previous to this, was the property recognized as a commercial use with one apartment?
Yes, it's always been licensed commercial with one unit. They never put two units. They always said the second unit was storage, so we never even was able to get in there. And even with the last inspection that happened, March 3rd? No, let me see. December 2nd, 2024. That's when they found that they had that extra unit being rented out by somebody that wasn't family. We never knew it was family members supposed to be living in it or anything because it never was inspected. They was always saying it was storage. So when the inspector left, he went around the block and the tenant just happened to come out the property, and that's how we was able to get in and verify that it is actually a unit, an extra unit that they've been using and collecting rent on.
So in other words, we're correcting something that is pre-existing.
I don't know how early pre-existing it is, but we never got into that second unit because of the resistance. So if it was already an apartment, we don't know if they created it illegally. That's most likely what would be the problem. But since it was never zoned and never tenant occupied, it's set up for two units with the commercial, they have to go through zoning.
My client has no issue with going through the proper steps to have an inspection of the third floor unit. I made it very clear that that was a requirement that they had to do, and also that there may be fines associated with the late inspection of the third floor unit. So they have no issue with Mr. McMillan coming in and doing the survey that he needs and the inspection that he needs to do on that third floor.
I believe I understand what she's saying, but on the flip side of that, by the way, I made the correction to the actual section number for the parking.
Thank
Okay,
you.
it should be D. Yes, I made the correction, and that'll
Thank you
be
very much.
Yeah, that'll be corrected in the minutes as well. But what happens is, granted, yes, you made it clear to him that he may be some fines and everything like that. But when you add an apartment, when you add something to that, it adds to the number of parking spaces and the density of that property. So that's why you have to come through zoning. It's not just as simple as, hey, you need to pay for that extra unit on the third floor, and you might be penalized because you had this before and you're collecting rent. Is that?
Yep, and I understand that, and that's why we're here today. The history of this building is rich. They've owned it since 1993, and my clients, they are not from America. English is not their first language, and their understanding of how businesses should be ran and how, the proper procedure needs to be followed is not the first thing they are adept to understanding. So I fully understand, Ms. Griffin's concerns and Mr. McMillan's concerns, but they've owned this property for many number of years, and it is my understanding that the third floor and second floor units have always been furnished to be occupied by tenants, meaning there's always been a kitchen, there's always been bathrooms, living rooms, the things you need to fundamentally live in a unit. So there was no conversion of the third floor unit. I think there was a period of time when there was no occupancy of the third floor by a non-family member that required, in the eyes of my client, required inspection by the city.
So the second and third floor have separate utilities?
Correct.
Okay.
How often are inspections?
2 years.
Every other year.
And how long has it been since there has been a relative living in the apartment?
I believe the last relative was living in there in 2024.
And there was an inspection in 24.
Nancy, the correct section is 1304.01.1.03.001.
Yes, D is in dog, because it's for the, D, it would be, 1304.01.1.03.001, D is in dog, so because of, that's the parking one.
Any further questions? Anyone from the public that would like to address this case? Do we have a motion for the variance for off-street parking?
I make a motion to recommend approval of the variance for off-street parking requirements as defined in section 1304.01.1.03.001D.
A second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson.
Aye.
Velez.
Aye.
Burgos. Gaines.
Aye.
Do we have a motion for, for the dimensional variance for apartment combined with commercial?
Make a motion to recommend approval of a dimensional variance for an apartment combined with commercial use found in section 1304.01-1.03.001 for the property at 300 East King Street.
A second.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson.
Aye.
Velez.
Aye.
Burgos. Gaines.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next is 18-2025-Z-SE-V 357 East Market.
Applicant, owner, same, Michael Miller, 4637 Ferniger Drive, York, PA 17406. Zoning district UN2 Urban Residential Neighborhood District. The applicant would like to convert a single-family dwelling into a two-unit multifamily dwelling. Variance one appeal. The applicant seeks a definition variance since the proposed use does not meet the ordinance requirements of conversion from industrial, institutional, or commercial. The property is a single-family home. Staff has reviewed the variance provision of 1311.10.d. Therefore, staff recommends denial of a definition variance to allow two units for the property at 357 East Market. Variance appeal 2. The applicant seeks a dimensional variance for multi-family conversion from a different use found in section 1304.01-1.002.002 to include conversion of a single-family home into two units for the property at 357 East Market Street in the UN2 zoning district. Therefore, staff recommends denial of a definition variance to allow two units for the property at 357 East Market Street. Variance appeal 3, the applicant seeks a variance to the special exception condition that the property has not been vacant for 2 years of section 1311.11, subsection C. Therefore, staff recommends denial of a variance to the special exception condition of the property being vacant for 2 years for the property at 357 East Market Street. Variance appeal 4, the zoning ordinance requires 4 off-street parking spaces for the proposed 2 units. The applicant is seeking a variance to reduce the number of off-street parking spaces. Staff has reviewed the variance provision in 1311.10.d and finds that the property does not have unique physical circumstances or conditions that warrant relief from the requirement of 1.5 parking space per dwelling unit. Therefore, staff recommends denial of a variance to the minimal number of parking spaces required for a multifamily dwelling for the property at 357 East Market Street. Special exception 1, for the use, the zoning ordinance permits multifamily conversion from a different use by special exception in the zoning district in 1304.1.1.02.002. Staff has reviewed the special exception provision for this property. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the request for the special exception to allow multifamily dwelling at 357 East Market Street pending all variances are approved.
Good evening.
Good evening, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, good.
Could you provide your name, please?
Michael Miller?
And can you tell us a little more what you're planning to do?
Yes, so basically, me and my partner here, we're investors in New York City. We bought this property, if you could look at the front page of the picture of the house, at one point it was a commercial property with the owners living upstairs and using the bottom as a commercial space. We bought the property, it was owner occupied with the tenant living upstairs renting out the bottom. Everything was completely separate as you see in the pictures, under its own everything, 2 meters, everything. We're basically just asking for a variance for the parking because our property is landlocked, but we are in the section of Market Street that you can park on both sides, and also the properties on both sides of us are commercial. And they also have additional parking.
Street parking there is metered, correct?
Yes, on both sides. In the little packets that I gave you, there's a couple pictures of it on both sides.
It's like across the street from the YMCA.
Yeah, it is. Actually, I think the church.
It's right where we cook it.
So it's currently set up as what you could call 2 units, living units?
Yes, basically, they all meet code. The square footage is great for both of them. They are both separated with their own everything. And we bought it like that.
So once you enter the single entryway at the front of the building, you have the 2 doors?
Yes, it splits right into that first picture right there. You have a first floor and a second floor, and then the second floor leads up to the 3rd floor.
So like you walk through the front door into a foyer, then you see these 2 doors?
Yes, sir. And then it splits off to the individual units.
Right now it's on this commercial, right?
I don't know.
Right now, this is zoned as a commercial space on the first floor?
No, the commercial space was out of there a long time ago, so it lost the commercial with apartment. So it went back to single family, I believe they said in 2007, something like that.
Yeah, the previous owner never registered or inspected it with the city. They just rented out both units. We would like to register and inspect it with the city and make it legally a 2-unit as we bought it.
Was it marketed to you as a 2-unit?
Yes, it was.
We have that issue quite often.
Yeah. That's why we're standing in front of you. We weren't expecting to do this.
Any more questions? Anyone from the public that would like to address this case? Do we have a motion on the variance for definition multifamily?
I make a motion to recommend approval of a variance to the definition of multifamily conversion from a different use as defined in section 1304.01-1.02.002A for the property at 357 East Market Street.
Second.
Because I already have Ms. Burgers down and copied and pasted, so.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos, Gaines.
Aye.
Do we have a motion for the dimensional variance?
I make a motion to recommend approval of a dimensional variance for multifamily conversion from a different use found in section 1304.01-1.02.002 to include conversion of a single-family home into 2 units for the property at 357 East Market Street.
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez, Burgos,
Aye.
Gaines.
Aye.
Do we have a motion for the variance to waive for special exception?
I make a motion to recommend approval of the variance to waive the special exception provision that the property must have been vacant for 2 years found in section 1311.11C1 for the property at 357 East Market Street.
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos, Gaines.
Aye.
Do we have a motion for the variance for off-street parking?
I make a motion to recommend approval of a variance to the required off-street parking spaces found in section 1304.01-1.02.002 for the property at 357 East Market Street.
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos, Gaines.
Aye.
And do we have a motion for special exception for multifamily?
I make a motion to recommend approval of a special exception to allow multifamily use as defined in section 1304.01-1.02.002 for the property at 357 East Market Street.
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos, Gaines.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I don't remember if they said it was vacant or not. Anything else? Any updates, anything? Any comments from commissioners?